Welcome back to Clarity Convos for Wedding Pros podcast. I'm your host, Aislinn, and today we have a very special guest. We have Addison Bowen. She is a business coach and certified hypnotherapist, and she's going to be talking about the subconscious. We're going to be talking about sabotages and how it relates to your business, and I'm so excited to introduce you to her. Addison, please say hello.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here. This is my stuff that I could do a TED Talk about for hours and hours. So I'm excited to give your audience some information around subconscious work and self-sabotage just so they can continue to expand their business.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love that you are a certified hypnotherapist. Can you tell me a little bit more about your background in that?
Yeah, so every time someone asks me that on a podcast, I'm like, well, that's kind of a loaded question, as you know, just our business journeys and stuff. But I actually was introduced to hypnotherapy when my mom gave birth to my little sister when I was, I think, 13. And she did hypnobirthing. So she basically decided to have an unmedicated birth and use hypnosis to help her manage the pain. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, that's so silly. Just get the epidural. I just think that's so silly at the time. But it kind of planted this seed. And then shortly after that, I got diagnosed with an autoimmune, and it kind of spiraled into a lot of holistic healing and stuff like that. And I was in nursing school wanting to do something in health and wellness, but didn't really see a way outside of just going to college and getting a nursing degree to really make money, doing something in holistic healing. And so in 2020, early 2020, I was introduced to the online coaching space, and it kind of started to click some things together. And I was like, there are other people that are making a lot more money than I could ever make, even nursing, doing similar things like this in the holistic healing space. And so that kind of started my journey into business. But I actually started in the back end of businesses. So doing admin work and doing business management and stuff like that, taking some of my admin experience from nursing and charting and stuff like that into the back end of business, and realized that I'm actually really, really good at business strategy, marketing, all of the things. So I took a lot of these businesses from no systems to scaling to their first multi-six figures, and really managing the back end of the business. And then I had this light bulb moment where I was like, what is going to set me apart in this online space from these things that a lot of people know how to do and are really good at? And also, I'm noticing that there's this 50-50 situation happening with clients that I'm working with, where some of them are, just so good at business and can handle all of the mindset stuff that comes up, and they, do some mindset work behind the scenes. But then there's this other realm of people that are really, really, really talented, but also still struggle with these basic level mindset issues. And we've heard people say that not everyone can be entrepreneurs because it's hard. I think they can. I think they just need the right work. And so that's when I was like, maybe I should start to look at deeper mindset work. How can I help people actually succeed even more? And I started using hypnosis as well, too, because I had a really hard time showing up on Instagram, on lives, on stories, selling my products, stuff like that. And I was like, let's just see if I do this every single day, what happens? And it resulted in me having my first $35,000 launch, and just creating all this visibility and just feeling fearless in my business. And I was like, I kind of started to put all the dots together, and I was like, I'm going to do this. And I got certified. At this point, it's been 4.5 years of actively practicing. So I have, to continue education. I've done a lot of certifications, and I just love it because I think even for someone who is super, super successful in business and is doing really well, it's just a moment for you to come back to yourself, come back to your creativity, and expand your mindset and showing you what's possible. Maybe you still have limiting beliefs around what you believe your revenue can look like and stuff like that. So I love it. And I love blending that strategy with the more deeper mindset work as well, too.
I love that. I love that so much because I talk to my clients so often about mindset, and it's not just oh, here's an affirmation, go, good job, pat on the head. That's never what it is. It's always these deeper questions. And I love that you bring hypnotherapy into it. Hypnotherapy is not something that you can just go out and one day, you're okay, cool. I'm a hypnotherapist now. It's it takes work to have that certification. And there's a lot of practice that has to happen in order for you to be good at it, but also like be able to practice it well. One of the things that you said, well, like, I love that you had this like, why not like type of like mentality of like, I'm just going to try this. Like, I'm going to try hypnotherapy every single day and just see what happens.
Mhm.
I think there's so much power in being able to be in a why not type of mindset where it's like, I'm not doing hypnotherapy in order to get X result. I'm doing it because why not? And
Yeah.
I love that that like is part of your journey and part of your story. So today, I think what would be so cool to talk about with you, because you have like both of these sectors, like you've got like the marketing genius and the business strategy and the like knowing how to make systems side of things, and you also have the hypnotherapy, the subconscious reprogramming, the mindset pieces. I really want to talk about how your subconscious can sabotage your business and like what that looks like, how it can show up, so that my audience and the listeners of this are able to really kind of start to identify these things and even possibly shift it. So I think the first, like, really, really great place to start, because some people might not have ever even tried hypnotherapy. I think I've tried it maybe once or twice. It's something that I keep putting it on my list of things to do, but I have other modalities that I like so much that I'm just like, I've got EFT, I'm good. But can you elaborate more on what hypnotherapy is and how it can be used in business, or maybe even how you've used it in business?
Yeah, I love EFT as well too. It's a great reprogramming technique. So I always tell my clients, like, if you're adding anything into your day to day, I'm not going to tell you it just has to be hypnotherapy. We do EFT behind the scenes as well too. So, and I know one of your questions was about different ways you can reprogram, so we can get into that. But I think with hypnotherapy, there's this idea that it's very occult or spiritual or mystical in nature. That's something that I thought too, which is why I had that why not, let's just try it mindset, because I was like, I don't know about this. It sounds a little woo woo. And like I said, when my mom used it, I was like, you're crazy. Like, just get, and now I'm using hypnobirthing for my birth and plan to go unmedicated. So it's funny to see how that all comes full circle. Uh, but I think it's important to talk about, just like what it is and what it is not, just really quickly to like dispel some myths. So it's not sleep or mind control or you being gullible or weak-mindedness or being unconscious. That's what a lot of people think because of hypnosis shows or movies. But it is just a relaxed, awake state, a tool of like ultimate self-control, one might say, or focused imagination, focused visualization, maybe like a mental upgrade, we could call it. And it's a heightened state of inner awareness. So really all like at its core, all hypnotherapy is a heightened state of concentration and focused attention. So in hypnosis, what we're able to do is when you're in a relaxed state, we're actually able to bypass your conscious mind and open your subconscious mind to suggestion. And that's the 95% of what's actually running the show in your business. So as a hypnotherapist, I am able to guide you like really safely into that state of relaxation. And it's really important that you have like trust built with that therapist, just like, a talk therapist, right? Like you're not going to go to someone that you don't feel trustworthy in. And then from that place, when we have access to your subconscious, we're able to shift like deep rooted patterns around money, visibility, self-worth, leadership. So in business, typically this means like rewiring visibility fear. I'll just share some of the top things that we do. Eliminating like money ceilings or upper limits, releasing imposter syndrome. That one's huge, even for like really massive entrepreneurs, helping them feel more like a leader, making success feel safe to hold. So we're not doing like massive feast and famine cycles where you have really big months and then really low months. And then at a baseline too, I think releasing and just helping them become more productive and have more motivation, because I think people have this idea that if I'm like not constantly on, then I'm failing. And that's just not realistic in business. When you're on all the time, you're actually like never really on. Your creativity shut off, you're stressed out, etc. So we're really just helping people get back to baseline so they have more time, more money, more freedom. Business doesn't feel like this is something that just stresses them out and is hard all the time. I also like to say that all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. So I'm not controlling you in the session. You're becoming more in control of yourself and your mindset because we're actually aligning your subconscious mind with what you want. So for anyone that's listening to this, I always like to do this little exercise with people that have never done hypnosis and are coming to me for the first time. So basically, if anyone's listening to this, you can just close your eyes for a second and imagine that you're walking over to your fridge and you open the door and you get a yellow, like really juicy lemon, and you can see like the bright yellow color, and you take it out and you slice it open and you can smell like the citrus. You can feel like maybe the spray on your face when you cut it, and you take a bite. And when you take a bite, something will typically happen. You'll feel your salivary glands like, they'll kind of start watering, or you'll feel that you'll like brace for that sour flavor in your mouth. Your mouth will water a little bit. And so I think that's a really powerful way to show like your subconscious mind, just even with that visualization, thought that that was somewhat real, right? Even though it was imagined, and your body reacted. And so that's the power that we tap into in hypnosis from like more of a neuroscientific place. We create thoughts in the mind so real that creates storms in the body and emotions in the nervous system. And then therefore your behavior changes in your business. So let me know if you have any questions from all of that. I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible because my mind wants
Yeah.
to go
Your
straight to
your
the
brain is like neuroscience. Let's go. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I talk about this with my clients all the time that like, we're going to talk a little bit about other different like reprogramming, other different like modalities like EFT and like hypnosis and everything. But I talk about that like these things like are hygiene. These are
Yeah.
not like tools that you have to pull out when you're in the like deepest, darkest depths of a mindset spiral. These are the things that you do just kind of like baseline to keep your mindset like at that place where it's like open to opportunity, where it's open to like things happening for you. It's open to like your income raising, or it's open to having more consistent income, or whatever it is that you're trying to do. So if you're listening to this, like I want you guys to think about this. Like hypnotherapy is not like, oh, I have like this imposter syndrome, I have to go find a
Mhm.
hypnotherapist. It's like, no, it's just like what exactly is coming up for you in like your day to day. These are the tools you can use to start to shift those things so that they never get to a point where it feels like, feast or famine. So I would love to hear from you. Like I was kind of listening to this and I was like, I wonder if like meditation and hypnotherapy like are basically the same thing, or if there's any differences that you as a hypnotherapist can talk about.
Yeah. So just to add to what you said, I love that you said that because I always tell my clients it's like it's not nice to have, it's have to have. And it doesn't mean that you have to do it for an hour every single day. It could be an 8-minute audio or something like that, or just tapping before you get into your work. And I think like if I look at the most successful entrepreneurs that I know, even like Demi, who we were in a mastermind together, she does breath work, right? Or she has done breath work in the past. And when you ask any successful entrepreneur that's making $100,000 plus per month, they will all say, this is what took me there. It wasn't the strategy. It wasn't, fixing my messaging until it was perfect, or, it was basically doing this work and then showing up as that person. So I really love that. As far as like meditation versus hypnotherapy, the main difference is like the state that you access is going to be pretty similar. It's the theta brainwave state, sometimes the delta brainwave state, which is even more powerful. That's where we've like fully shut off the conscious mind. And like if you know Joe Dispenza, he is someone who does a lot of meditation. He calls everything meditation. But when I'm in his meditations, I'm like, this is hypnosis. Like it's like very
Yeah.
similar. You're relaxing your body, and then there's a therapy portion. But I would say that the main difference, like if you're doing meditation yourself and you're sitting there for, 20 minutes and doing that yourself, or listening to a guided meditation versus sitting down with someone like me in hypnosis, is that I actually talk to you in hypnotherapy sessions. So when you're in that theta brainwave state, I will actually say like, okay, what are you protecting yourself from in regards to XYZ thing? What is holding you back from creating 20, 30, 40, $50,000 months? Why are we repeating this pattern? And when we've shut off your conscious mind, we're getting direct access from your subconscious. So it's almost like I'm going to Google and typing in a question, and you're getting like the deepest rooted answers where you're not able to like lie to yourself anymore. So I would say that's the biggest difference, is that instead of just relaxing, we're actually doing therapy, we're getting to the root, and we're creating those changes. And so regardless, meditation can be a great way to reprogram yourself, especially if you're visualizing and you're really, like I said, getting into those visualizations, because your subconscious doesn't differentiate thought from reality, like with that lemon scenario. So if you're sitting in meditation every single day and you're visualizing like this massive, photography business and getting on Martha Stewart weddings and, having these, I don't know, $30,000 clients. I don't know what the the range is for photography, but I'm just, thinking like eventually you're going to start to take action with repetition that aligns with that. But I would say like hypnosis is still one layer deeper, where we're actually able to pinpoint what those blocks are and then move through them that much quicker. Does that make sense? So meditation is like, I'm bringing more awareness to myself and relaxation. Hypnosis is like, or hypnotherapy is like therapy.
Yeah, it's like let's do the work side of things,
Mhm.
basically.
Yeah.
So, many years ago, I started doing EFT like probably back in like 2019, 2020. And I really got into it back in like 2021 and 2022. But I remember the people that I was learning EFT from, they would say like, there's an app, it's called the Think Up app, and it's like completely free. But basically, you're using your voice to say different affirmations, and then you're listening to it, and there's like music in the background, but it's your voice saying the affirmations. So when you're in a hypnotherapy session, is it similar to that style of thing, or is it different from that?
Yeah, so it's gonna be my voice the whole time, which is why the connection with me and, like, trust with me is so important, but I'm taking your goals and tailoring that into a session. So the thing with that, which I think that's a great place for someone to start if they're just like, I wanna, reprogram daily, I wanna have an audio that can really lift me up. The only problem with that is that, let's say you're saying something like, I'm abundant, but your subconscious mind doesn't agree with that. You don't actually feel abundant. It's going to reject that. So you're automatically in your conscious mind going to go, yeah, that's not true. I don't feel abundant. And you're not actually creating change. So while I love affirmations and I love the repetitiveness of it, you have to start small. And so I always tell my clients, if you're going to do something like that, like start with things that you absolutely believe to be true so that your mind is like, oh yeah, my name's Addison. Oh yeah, I'm a hypnotherapist. Oh yeah, like I have a husband. I know all these things are true. And then we can start integrating maybe like, something smaller than I feel abundant or I'm a millionaire. Maybe it's like, I'm always safe with money or something like that, or I always figure it out. And you can kind of work up to that. But if your subconscious mind is like, we can never be a millionaire. My parents did this and this, and they worked this hard for their money. And like, that's just not possible. You're going to reject it. You're not creating congruence with the subconscious and the conscious mind. So it's a little bit different in the sense of in hypnotherapy where we're getting to the root of like where that resistance is and then releasing it and then reprogramming it.
Yeah. I always love like having conversations with people around like the subconscious mind that like the subconscious mind is like such a sassy
It
thing.
is.
You were talking about how like if you don't believe the affirmation of I am a millionaire, like your subconscious mind is gonna like drop kick that and be like, absolutely not.
Mhm.
No, ma'am, we are not.
Yeah.
Like that's not what we're doing. And I think it's so funny because like I've talked to so many different like a lot of my friends are in like the subconscious reprogramming like sector of the coaching industry. And
Yeah.
like it's always talked about it in that way. And I love it so much. So I think this is like a perfect segue into talking about the subconscious in general and just kind of also talking about like different ways to reprogram the subconscious. So in
Yeah.
whatever direction you want to take that in, I want to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, so different ways to reprogram the subconscious or hypnosis, my favorite. I love EFT as well too. EFT is more like releasing stored fear or shame in the body. So it's like it's good to couple with hypnosis because you're in the theta brainwave state, accessing the subconscious in both, and then you're also tapping into the body. So, like a lot of my clients will use both reprogramming audios in any way, shape, or form. So, like we just mentioned, just making sure that we actually do align with those affirmations. Even just like future self embodiment can be a form of subconscious reprogramming. So, it doesn't have to be as hard. So, like looking at your life and saying, okay, if I was X photographer, X business owner that was making this much and doing this much, how would I be showing up? What would my life look like? Usually you can find some incongruencies with how you're showing up. And it doesn't have to be like, I would wake up at 5 a.m. and I would do this. It might just be like, oh, I would be showing up online in a different way, or I would be taking care of myself in this way. So that's a really great way. To kind of start. That part is hard because you're kind of using willpower to change your behavior, which your subconscious is going to fight. We said EFT tapping breath work is another great one. And then even just like sometimes journaling is really great as well too, to release and bring awareness to those patterns. And then I always say like add EFT hypnosis breath work into that to solidify it at a deeper level. As far as the subconscious mind goes, I mean, that is something we could talk about forever because it's so deep rooted. But I think for your listeners, the important thing to know is that your subconscious mind runs 95% of your behavior, and your behavior is what's going to create your results in business. So your conscious mind is really only 5 to 8%. So that kind of comes back to this is not nice to have, or this is hygiene, right? Like you said, where a lot of people are just not even tapping into their subconscious mind, and they're missing that deep-seated creative, intuitive power that lives within them. And so within your subconscious, we have your identity, we have emotional patterns, your beliefs about what's safe. We have so many different pieces of you. Your conscious mind is really just like reactive thinking. Uh, Everything about you basically lives in your subconscious, and it's like a computer program. It was programmed between mostly the ages of 0 to 8. So everything that you saw, heard, experienced around you during that time period, it kind of like filed away and was like, okay, this is how we be, this is how we do. This is like why a lot of women, struggle in business sometimes with being like feminine, or with allowing themselves to be seen, because they've heard things like you have to be seen and not heard in like a corporate job, or in, that time period as a child. And so basically at a base level, programmed during that time, programmed throughout time periods in your life where you learned how to be and do and live in society. And then to this day, those programs are still running. So those programs are telling you how to wake up in the morning, what habits you have, etc. And your subconscious mind wants to run on autopilot because it wants to keep you safe. So its main goals are familiarity, safety, comfortability. So it wants every day to look the same as it did yesterday, which is why growth in entrepreneurship can feel really challenging and hard, and why we can get to points where, a lot of my clients are plateaued at like 10K months and they can't get beyond that. And it's because it's so familiar and comfortable that they're resisting any next level thing because that feels unsafe. And unsafe can be in a number of different ways. But I think like just to help even understand the subconscious a little bit more, there's what we call like prime directives, which are basically rules of the unconscious mind. So I'll just run off a few of them, but the subconscious mind preserves the body. So its highest directive, highest rule is to basically keep your body safe, keep your mind safe, and anything outside of familiar is going to be unsafe. It's also a servant. It likes to follow orders, which is why hypnosis is and EFT, any of those things are really awesome, because if you start to give it the order of like, no, I want to be this person, or I want to do this thing, or I have this goal, it's going to help you with your action and make action that much easier for you. And it also preserves memories. This is something that's really interesting to me that, we aren't consciously aware of that we have, but basically it's like stored in a timeline in our mind. And so it will sometimes repress memories with unresolved negative emotions, and we can access those in things like EFT and hypnosis that can allow us to then take action. So a lot of times, like when we're talking about subconscious self-sabotage, we're not aware that we're doing it. And that's the tricky thing about it. And it can become because of those, or can be because of those repressed memories. So that's just like kind of a base level overview. But if you can think about it as like a computer program that was programmed before and is trying to run the same way every single day, I think that's like the easiest way to think about it.
Yeah, a lot of y'all are running on like the 1998 Mac
Yeah,
OS.
like
Like
your
we need
inner
to
child 1995 little, yeah.
like we got to bring it up. Like let's do like the
Mhm.
upgrades, let's do the software upgrades. And that's literally like sometimes what I think about like when I'm going through like an up level is like it feels like a software upgrade. It
Yeah.
feels like you're almost like every single like file on your computer is getting like looked at. And like some of them are getting deleted and some of them are getting upgrades and some of them are getting installed completely into like new programs. So it's so funny that you're talking about EFT and like clearing and stuff, because it's like we can sit here and ask the questions of like, why do you think you do this? Like, and
Mhm.
we're in our fully conscious state. We're not going to be able to answer that like with full clarity. But when you start doing hypnosis, when you start doing EFT tapping, like you're going to like find these stories and these like connection points that you're like, wow, really? That was the connection? Really? Like
Oh, yeah.
that's why we do this thing? And so for me and my clients, it's definitely one of those things that like it's hygiene. We have to do it as often as we can to make sure that we're not getting stuck in patterns just because we have older programming. I think this is a beautiful segue into talking about sabotage, because one of the things that you said was that like sometimes we don't even know. I think it's
Mhm.
almost worse when we do know what the sabotage is. And I'm sure you have like similar stories of like times where you're like, yeah, this is definitely a sabotage. Am
Oh,
I going to
yeah.
change it? maybe, maybe not. So I want to hear more from you about like the subconscious sabotaging your business. Like, what can this look like for people? And do you have any examples from like your own business or your clients, whichever?
Yeah. So, I think I will just say with something that you're aware of that you're sabotaging, like let's say you want to stop eating sugar or you want to lose weight, or you're like, I want to get up at 5 a.m. and work out because I know that would be so helpful for me. And you know that you're sabotaging it because you snooze your alarm or whatever. Um, Most of the time in those scenarios or situations, your subconscious is still trying to keep you safe and keep you in that familiar. So, I always tell my clients that when you're changing a habit or a behavior like that you're consciously aware of, you're most of the time trying to use willpower to change it, and willpower never sticks. So for anyone here that is aware of their sabotage, hypnosis and EFT and all of those things can also help you create those new patterns and just become that person that's like 6:30 a.m. workout, whatever the thing is for you. But subconscious self-sabotage is a little bit more tricky. And I'll give you an example first of something that I recognized recently for myself, because I think a lot of people will relate to this. But so TikTok is like something that, I knew with my niche would be really, really supportive. So I think in 2020, I started an account. I had like one video go viral. I maybe had, 18,000 followers or something like that. And I just was kind of sitting on these followers, and I could never get myself to stay consistent with it. I would say like, okay, this week I'm going to post 3 times. I'm not even going to try and post every single day. I'm going to post 3 times. And then the end of the week would come by and I'd made all these excuses for why I couldn't do it. And back in November, I see a hypnotherapist myself, and I was like, I just want to explore more passive income, because a lot of my income is high ticket clients. I didn't know I was pregnant at the time, so I feel like my intuition was like, let's
Let's
dive into this a
prepare
little bit.
you.
But I wanted to dive into that and see maybe like what resistance I had around low ticket offers and stuff like that. And what came up in the session was actually that I have a lot of low ticket offers, and like TikTok was going to be one of the best ways for me to sell them. And so I in that session kind of came up against this. Like you said, you have all these things that come up from, childhood or whatever, that kind of are like, oh, there's a connection here. Um, and basically what came up for me was I knew that if I started posting about hypnosis, and if I even shared like little hypnosis clips on TikTok, I knew it would go viral. I knew that people would comment. I knew that it would get lots of views. I knew that my account would grow. And there was a part of me that was resisting that because of the lack of safety that comes with hate comments or people, trying to dispel, that what you're doing is wrong. And there's still so many people that have these misconceptions around hypnotherapy. And it just felt like I didn't want to get into that. So for 4 years, basically 3-4 years, I was like, I want to do this, but only halfway. And, I'm not staying consistent and, blah, 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 blah. Anyways, one session of this, like making, just realizing that I was creating the resistance around that fear and bringing awareness to it, I was like, oh, this is silly. So I set a challenge for myself to, in November, post 3 times a day on TikTok just for fun to see what happened. And it's ended up in, just these massive wins in my business. So I think that's like a really great example of how subtle it can be. It can come up as like delaying, or saying you don't have enough time, or telling yourself you're not ready, etc., or like just these excuses, right? And that's like a classic form of subconscious self-sabotage. It is subconscious. So most of the time you don't know you're doing it, and it feels really logical. It feels like, actually, I don't have the time. Actually, I don't have the money. Actually, I don't have, whatever. And it feels also a lot of times responsible. So a way this can come up is with investing, where people are like, well, I don't have the money. And you feel responsible because you're saying like, no, I need to have this many clients or this thing to do that next move, right? And it also feels a lot of times like very strategic. So in my head, I was like, well, I'm just putting all my eggs in Instagram because I want to I want to be really solid there before I move to another platform. When it's like, that's not always realistic when you're creating success. It's like we said at the beginning, sometimes you have to just like jump into something and, let it be. But a lot of times at the basis to look at self-sabotage and subconscious self-sabotage, you want to look at where your actions don't match your desires. So I'm saying, I want all this passive income. I want, this huge following. I want to grow my podcast. I want to do all the things. And I know consciously that TikTok is a way to do that because I've seen other creators do that, but my actions don't match my desires, right? So my subconscious in some way is calling the shots in that way. So just some signs that people are subconsciously self-sabotaging. I wrote these down because I was like thinking beforehand, I'm like, this will be helpful for people to have a few signs that they can kind of look at. So I think number one is you keep prepping or planning or tweaking, but you're not really executing. So maybe you're behind the scenes in your website every single day or tweaking a Canva carousel a million times, but you're not actually executing and taking that action and letting yourself take messy action. Ghosting your audience during launches. So, being in a big launch and knowing that you want to have this massive income jump or whatever, but you are like, I'm going to sell every single day, and you don't. You ghost your audience. Avoiding like promotion of your offers in general. So that can be a huge one. That's going to be more so for like newer entrepreneurs than it is like more established entrepreneurs. Undercharging for offers can be one. Delaying visibility, like I was, waiting until you have the right strategy or you feel more confident or you have more time or you have more money or whatever. Feeling overwhelmed when momentum starts to build. So let's say you are growing rapidly and your business is growing and you're feeling really good and you're like hitting those high income months and all you feel is overwhelm and stress. That's a huge indication that there could be some sabotage coming up. And then also getting sick. Interestingly enough, our subconscious is so powerful that you could have like a big promotion coming up or a big, I say promotion like in the corporate world because I know that can happen, or like a big talk come or speaking gig come up and all of a sudden you're sick. Your subconscious is like, that's scary. We're creating more visibility. So it's really wild how, like if you even look at different time periods where you've been super sick in your business, is there a correlation between like a big rebrand or, a big visibility opportunity? Because that's how powerful our minds are. But basically, again, like your behavior, your decisions don't line up with those desires. So I think that at a baseline, just remembering that you're protecting yourself from what's unfamiliar. So there's no need to like push through that resistance as fast as possible. Sometimes you have to work up to it. I think from a client perspective, client example, I've had lots of clients who have like gone very viral and have had, DMs either full of leads or full of people asking questions about their offers or, comments. And instead of getting on, let's say TikTok or Instagram or whatever, and like responding to those comments and feeling excited about it and being like, because this is something they wanted. They wanted this massive visibility. They're like all of a sudden avoiding Instagram. They're avoiding TikTok. They feel this like massive stress in their body when they open the account, or, you said you wanted more clients, but then you're not replying to the messages, or you're ignoring sales conversations, or, you're behind the scenes like editing an email or reorganizing like a Google Drive or like something like that. You know what I mean? So that's like a classic, like higher level example, I would say. Basically, it's like, you feel like you're going to be judged in some way, or if you open that Instagram account, all the comments are going to be hate comments. And then most of the time they're like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for this. This is incredible. You know what I mean? So that's an example. But I like to say there's 4 D's of subconscious self-sabotage. I don't know why they're D's. It's just what came to mind. But delay, so it's not ready yet. Distraction, which is let me fix something instead of selling or promoting or taking action. Doubt, so who am I to do this? Or it's not possible for me to expand or pivot in that way because I don't have enough knowledge, or I need another certification. And downplaying, so downplaying your goals and saying like, meh, it's okay. I don't need 50K months anyways. And those are all like just survival responses. Your subconscious doing exactly what it's designed to do, which is keep you safe in that familiarity, in that uncomfortability, and even like keeping you small. Like I think that's a good way to say that too. So I know
Yeah.
that was
Oh
a
my
lot.
gosh.
I wanted to make sure people had like, very clear, tangible things to look at and say like, okay, I'm doing that.
Yeah. I think like the thing that was coming up for me was like every single like example or just about every example you gave, I have experienced at some point in my
Oh
life,
yeah,
at some point in my
same.
business. I have been in very, very high level masterminds. I've been around really incredibly successful entrepreneurs. Like Addison and I were both in a really amazing mastermind together. And like you could watch the sabotages play out in both yourself and other people.
Oh,
And I
for
think
sure.
like what's so important here to just kind of like, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh man, like I'm sabotaging, it's really easy to go into I'm bad, broken, or wrong for sabotaging. And I just want to like let you know, like it's part of the human experience.
Mhm.
It's part of the human experience for us to sabotage. I think what's important here, like to like take away from like this like podcast is there are ways for you to notice the sabotage, do the hygiene, like, and make sure that you're like kind of like keeping the sabotages more like at bay and not letting them get so big. I think like the thing that I kind of want to dive into here just a little bit is like what are some ways to like kind of stop this in its tracks? Like let's just say
Yeah.
like you find a sabotage and you're like, well, shit. Now what?
Well, it is such a normal experience and you just have to create neutrality around it. Like, when I realized this about TikTok, I could have gone down the route of, oh my gosh, if I figured this out 4 years ago and realized I was fearful of this visibility, like look at where I could be. I could have, but instead I'm just like, okay, cool. Let me move on. That's great. And I always like to say there's a part of you, one small part of you that probably has that fear. And you can even speak to that part and be like, thanks for protecting me for all this time, but I'm done with you. And I'm not giving, I'm not going to be mad at you. I'm not placing shame. I'm thankful that you were protecting me in this way, but now I'm ready to, move on. So I love that you brought that up. But I think it's just realizing it's protection. Your body, your mind, everything is trying to protect you. I think even like, let's look at procrastination, for example. It's like one of the most common self-sabotage behaviors. And, in that place of procrastination, you're thinking like you're waiting for clarity or you're not ready yet or it's not perfect or whatever. But it's just your subconscious protecting you from being seen, being judged, being successful, and even high-level entrepreneurs do this. So rather than placing shame on yourself for procrastinating again, it's like, can we use one of these tools because we do consciously desire that next level of success? And you can even ask yourself like, okay, I'm procrastinating. Like, what am I protecting myself from here? And I think that's like a question that I give all of my clients to just dive a little bit deeper and do like the work themselves. But, what am I protecting myself from? And maybe you can even take a moment and like name it and recognize it might be fear in disguise or, procrastination isn't always self-sabotage. Sometimes it's like maybe you have ADHD or something like that, right? But I think that if you're noticing that it's sabotage, name it and ask yourself too, like, is this just fear in disguise? And then asking yourself those powerful questions that I mentioned before, which is like, maybe what am I protecting myself from? Is there a part of me that's afraid this might actually work? And if so, what part of me or what am I afraid might happen if it does? What feels threatening about more success? And then that's when we can bring in those like reprogramming tools where you can shift the belief that's at the surface, maybe, into I'm safe being seen or my work is valuable or more work doesn't mean that I have to work harder or it's okay if I get a hate comment or, whatever, and then anchor it in with aligned action. But I think just giving yourself space to like recognize that you're just protecting yourself. Like you said, it's a normal human experience. You're going to come up against that in any area of business, sometimes even more so when you're growing because there's more to lose and that's okay. And like, don't push yourself through it. And you will burn out and will create a lot of resistance and even get to the point where you might want to shut your business down if you're constantly are like pushing through it, like go slow with yourself, and I think I was at the point, like the TikTok example is just a small example, but I was at the point where I was like tired of the lack of consistency. So I was just like, I'm going to anchor this in with posting 3 times a day. I don't care if it's hard. I don't care if I have to do it late at night or whatever. I'm going to make it happen. And that really helped me also see that like I'm safe to take that action. And since then, I've been posting very consistently on TikTok. So I think that doing the thing with safety in mind also builds that new default faster than any affirmation ever will. So don't just sit there and be like, I'm safe, I'm safe, I'm safe. It's like, what is one small action step I can take? And then on the flip side, like also recognizing I'm protecting myself in some way. Why am I doing that? And is there a way that I can safely like move through this action?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. One of the things that like we were kind of talking about like in the very beginning of that little section was like having certain parts of you. Like there's a type of therapy called parts therapy. It's like
Hmm. Yeah, we do it
interpersonal
in
yeah.
hypnosis.
I love parts therapy. But one of the things that like is taught in parts therapy and like the thing around it is like you have different pieces of yourself and each of these pieces will speak up at different times. And so one of the like kind of like visions I wanted to give you guys is like this idea of like right now there's a part of you in the driver's seat. Like
Hmm.
right now there is a part of you in the driver's seat making decisions for you. like we can revoke the access or revoke the driver's license of who's in the driver's seat right now. Like we could be like, hey man, like your driver's license revoked for like 10 days. Sit in the back seat. Somebody else is taking control right now. And that's kind of a more fun, playful way to think about it versus it being like, oh man, fear's speaking up again. How dare it speak up? It's like,
Mhm.
no, it's like, speaking up. What does it have to say? Cool. Good job. Sit in the back seat. Like we got we
Yeah.
got stuff to do. But one of the other things like I was thinking about was like you were talking about different questions to ask yourself. So I have learned over the years like different subconscious questions and like people call it different things. They call it shadow work, they call it subconscious questions. Like, but one of my favorite ones, and I always preface this like to my clients, I'm like, you're gonna hate this question, but I'm gonna
Mhm.
ask you anyway, is what are you getting out of
Mhm.
procrastination? What are you getting out of doing this thing? And it's called secondary gain
Yeah.
in psychology. But like basically, like it's like if you are procrastinating right now and you ask yourself, what are you getting out of procrastinating? Okay, you might be getting like less responsibility, or you might be getting rest. You might be getting and like sometimes it's rest and sometimes it's not rest. Sometimes it might be that like you if you weren't procrastinating and you were doing the thing, that you would have to show up differently and that you would have to show up more consistently. And there's some part of you that's like scared of that.
Mhm.
So it's a great question. It's also one of those questions where you're just like, oh, crap, I
Mhm.
got to go do work.
Yeah. I definitely ask my clients that too, but I usually say like, what value does this XYZ thing bring? Our subconscious mind loves value. So it loves like, you know, like you're saying, seeing value or seeing a win in something that we're doing, even if it is procrastination. So I love that.
I love it too. I'm sure like you and I have probably a list of like 100 subconscious questions amongst us. But I think this is like a perfect kind of way to like wrap up. I want to hear from you. Like not only how can people like find you and work with you, but like what are some of your favorite offers that you have or favorite things that you do like with your clients, whether it's like one to many or like mastermind level, like what are some of the things that you have available for people?
Yeah, so my absolute favorite place is my mastermind. It's called Master Your Mind Mastermind. And it's different than any other mastermind, and I can say that because I've been in a million of them. Not a million, but I've been in quite a few of them myself, and, we blend the subconscious work with the strategy there, so it's a great place for entrepreneurs that want to grow their business, want to scale, but also are recognizing like, "Okay, there's a deeper piece here in my mind. I'm really wanting to dive deeper into that work." And also, it's not a space where I'm just like, "Go journal, go affirm, go do hypnosis." It's like we're diving deep into data and analytics and, their funnels and everything behind the scenes. So that's really where I thrive because I can blend those two together. But we also start every mastermind call with, a drop in. We do hypnosis before we even dive into the strategy. We're looking at what are the blocks before we dive into strategy because I think, what a lot of people don't recognize is that your subconscious self-sabotage can also blend into your messaging because you don't think you're enough to like say things a certain way or can blend into, how you present a funnel, etc. So it's a really great way to blend both. So that's my favorite space. And I say, master your mind, master your business or like in my marketing for that space, that's really what I'm known for. But my other favorite place is the Master Your Mind portal, which is a membership with hypnosis audios. It's basically just a hypnosis library. It's a great place to get started to rewire your subconscious around money, leadership, visibility, etc. And that space is actually changing in the next couple of months. So we're opening it up not just to entrepreneurs, but to anyone that wants to do reprogramming. So we're going to have anything, from like money and entrepreneurship to like fitness and success. And, because your subconscious plays into every part of your life, not just business. So I'm really excited about that. It's going to be like a little hypnosis app, and that is only $50 a month. So that's a great way for people to get started. But I also say it's like hypnosis, yes, is great in the sense of like you're relaxing. It's also work. So you have to commit to doing it daily, if not, 4 times a week, choosing an audio or following one of my protocols in there and committing to it because otherwise you're not going to see those changes just like you wouldn't at the gym. And then I love my podcast as well too. My podcast, we post 1 to 2 episodes every single week. Sometimes it's a free hypnosis. Sometimes it's a riff that I have. Sometimes it's a guest episode. You were on my podcast, so we'll have to link that below. And then sometimes it's like I do these things called mindset hotline with me, basically where I take like a question I get from someone specific about their mindset or subconscious or whatever that I've heard from a client or in my DMs, and I riff on that and tell them how to move through it. Sometimes we add a little hypnosis at the end. So they're like real-time examples. That's a new series we brought in, but I love my podcast as well too. So I would say those are great places to get started, especially if you just want an introduction into hypnosis. The portal or the podcast is a great place to start.
I love that. So all of that's going to be in the show notes. So if you were like, I want to be part of the mastermind, or I want to be part of the portal, or I want to go listen to her podcast, all of that will be in the show notes. Addison, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. Like, thank you for sharing your wisdom. This was like one of the most fun conversations. Like, don't tell anybody else, but one of the
It
most
was
fun
really fun.
conversations. I love talking about subconscious work. So this was like it was very filling for me, but also I know that this can be so helpful for the people who are listening. So thank you again for being here.
Yeah, thank you. I had so much fun.
All right, my friends, I will see you on the next episode. If you want to connect with Addison, you can do so in the show notes below. And I hope you have a beautiful day.